Hey, hey, sounds like the cat's out of the bag. You have found Allegiant WebWise, where for you web agencies, we discuss the business of being a web business. Hi guys, and welcome to the latest episode of the Allegiant Web podcast. Today we're going to be discussing how you can actually use freelancers and other resources to make sure that you can deliver all that client work that's coming in, which you will now have as a result of having listened to our other episodes. Today, I am as ever joined by Gill and Mike, and I go over to them for their wisdom, starting, of course, with the most beautiful man in the room. No, Gill.
Did you call me a man?
I think you did.
Yeah. Well, I'll move past my offence because I can do that. And that's what you need to be able to do when you work with people from all over the world with different cultures and things like that. So I thought we would share a little bit of our experience as Allegiant in terms of what our experience has been in attempting to, as Allegiant, bring somebody on board, and also our individual experiences, because we have various experiences at various levels for this. So yeah, I think we're going to go around all the houses, aren't we?
We are, and I think that there is a number of things that we're going to discuss today. And from my own personal point of view, I'll probably talk mostly about the management side, in terms of managing the workload and expectation.
That's brilliant, because when we look at this subject, of course, there is, as Mike says, the management side. Before that, you've got the finding side. Where do you actually find an external resource, and how do you decide who you're going to use? So, Jill, would you like to start off with your experiences of that side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have used a number of times the Philippines. So I've used onlinejobs.ph, and I've probably had 4 Filipino workers working with me over the last few years now. And so that's quite an interesting experience in itself, and lots of ups and downs, but that's life. I've used Upwork. I've used what's the other one? Fiverr.com. And I have used connections that I've met through other developer clubs. So I have a couple of people who I've met that are really good through that type of scenario. And I think I've used people through other networking as well, both in the UK and outside the UK.
Okay, and I mean, of those, you mentioned Fiverr, Upwork, and obviously the other things. Have you found any one particular avenue more useful to you than any other?
I think you have to decide what you're looking for up front, and it's whether you want to do this on a project by project basis, or whether you want to take somebody on full time. And so in terms of full time, I found the Philippines Filipino workers have been brilliant for that, and they fit the budget. They're fairly reliable and knowledgeable, and well educated. If you're looking for somebody per project or a particular task base, then I've used all sorts of people from all over the world, and it depends on the actual task itself. So I have a wonderful person that I use from South Africa who does branding, and she is amazing. And then I have a guy in America who does PHP programming, and he's amazing as well. And then there are various people from the UK that I use for both those types of things: branding, PHP, building, design. I have dipped my toe in sort of India, Bangladesh type of areas as well. And I think I'm trying to think if there's anywhere else. I think that's probably all the locations that I can think of off the top of my head. But it depends on the skills and the type of interaction that I want to have with a person. And a lot of those I did once and I didn't do again because they didn't go the way I'd hoped they'd gone. And that's a huge learning experience, because I heard people talking online, pick what you like and then outsource everything else, and your business is going to grow and it's going to be amazing. And I found that wasn't actually exactly how it went for me all the time. There were a lot of bumps in the roads, and it was actually really quite difficult to get good people, no matter what processes you put in place to try and filter out people who are not so good.
Yeah, and I think you have to also, before you embark on this, decide whether you are a good manager or not as well, and whether you are going to be the type of person that is going to have the patience and the follow-up skills to be able to make sure that you get what you want from those individuals that you hire. And managing people is an art in itself, and not everybody is natural at it. And so you have to decide on how you're going to communicate. And when you get angry, which does happen because deadlines can get missed, because maybe you didn't explain something properly, or maybe your expectation wasn't what the other person had received, and maybe their skill level isn't quite what you thought it was going to be. And so you go from thinking that you've passed over a piece of work, and maybe you perhaps gave them a little bit of latitude to allow them to get their feet under the table a little bit, but it had a bit of a deadline to it, and it didn't turn out the way it should. And of course, what happens is, who's the person that is accountable for that? That's you. The buck stops with you. And so when your client or your customer is not happy with the outcome, and you've always got 5-star reviews for everything you've done because you always make sure that you hit deadlines, and you don't hit a deadline because of having taken on staff, that's when things change. And so I would say that if you don't know anything about management and never managed people before, then perhaps you need to do a little bit of research as to setting expectations and mapping out exactly what you want, and also checking their understanding of what you've asked them to do as well.
I think that's a really good point. And you talked also, Jill, about individuals you work with where it's been very successful, and then mentioned the case where it hasn't been as successful. So if you were trying to give some lessons learned, that our audience could pick up on, what sort of things might you be telling them?
I think that there is a list of things, being very, very clear about the boundaries in which you operate in. So, for example, if you were taking somebody on for a full-time position, then you have to be very, very clear about what the boundaries are if this is where it could go wrong. So, for example, these are my expectations, and we're going to review this at this point. If this hasn't been hit, or if this happens, then actually the potential is that our relationship will not continue beyond that moment in time. And so if you get to a point where you fire somebody, or you have to unfortunately let somebody go, then it should not be a surprise to them. They should know straight away that they have not hit the things that you expected of them. And that's about articulating your expectations and agreeing them with them. And I think that comes back to what Mike was saying about management. I think that the whole idea, and there is actually, there's some stuff around about the generational expectations of management as well. And sometimes older people managing Gen X or younger, they can have different expectations of, and the command and control style of management is still, you say something, you expect somebody to do something, whereas the younger generation, I might be looking at them and they're on their phone, and I'm like, well, what are you doing? Come on, get on with your work. And they're like, well, my dad's like ill or something, so it's about trying to uncover and get to communication is so important. And especially if they're not native English speakers, And I think you need to completely come back, check and check again, and you're going to get it wrong, and just accept that. And actually, the person you're working with will get it wrong too. And there's also something about, I like to give people a benefit of the doubt, perhaps a bit too much, but then there is a point where you have to say, actually, this has gone beyond a benefit of the doubt. You know, this is where we part ways. But sometimes you've got to find out, like, that person didn't make their deadline. So what was going on with that? Was there something going on with them at home? You know, did they struggle with a problem and they were too embarrassed to come and talk to you because you're not approachable enough? And you know, I love Simon Sinek's stuff for this kind of thing, because he always says, you know, if there's something like this goes on, then look at yourself first.
Okay.
So,
could you just repeat that author's name for us, please?
Simon Sinek.
Great. And obviously we'll have that in the show notes, as we do for all the episodes. Mike, one other thing kind of related to that, obviously as a company, we provide a variety of services, not just web design, but, you know, hosting, SEO, and many others. Is there any particular area you think is more suitable for outsourcing, or not suitable at all?
I don't think there's anything that's not suitable for outsourcing. I think that you have to remember that if you're a solopreneur and you've decided to take somebody on, if you've got a set of processes, say for SEO, and you have a set of tools for that as well, then you might have an initial outlay of spending a bit more money to give somebody access to those tools. That might be in a management capacity. It might be task related. So it might be that you need an additional license for ClickUp or Asana or whatever project management tool that you use. If it's for SEO and you're using other tools that are very expensive tools to use to ensure that you've got all the right information before you embark on the work, so it's part of perhaps a research standard operating procedure, then there is going to be some potential outlay for you. And so you are investing in those individual or individuals, because you might decide that you want to start running an SEO agency. And so therefore you're going to need a number of enterprise style licensing models that you haven't been down before. So your profit at the very, very beginning, depending on the amount of clients that you've got, is going to be affected by that. So I would say it's probably less difficult with web design to do that. But the minute you start getting into tools and access and things like that, then you've got your both short-term and potential long-term outlay.
That's a really good point, and perhaps obvious to say, but, you know, sometimes we miss the obvious stuff. You know, if you're looking at outsourcing, then obviously try and take a low risk project or service as your first one and learn your lessons on the low risk stuff rather than the high risk stuff. And the difference between low risk and high risk, you know, will be different from each business to business. But, you know, think about the impact on the clients that you're working for, and other ones, you know, where there will be a different impact to their business depending on what you're working on. So,
and maybe it's also a good idea to set an unreasonable expectation and see if they can deliver it.
You see, listeners, we all thought Mike was cute and cuddly, but he's got that other side to him.
Okay.
Well,
it'd just be
let's see how that
interesting
goes
to see.
for you.
Yeah, thank you. No, actually, I think the point there, when I say unreasonable, not completely unreasonable expectation, like can it be done in the next hour, or why isn't it done yet? But actually something that might take you the same amount of time to do, but thinking that actually they don't have your level of experience. So, because that's the thing that you're always measuring, engaging people on. Well, it only takes me this amount of time. What are they doing? And that kind of emotion starts to play a part in your decision making as to whether you have a long-term future with that individual or not. And I think one of the things that, having spoken to Gill over the course of time where she's been working certainly with the Filipinos, is that you end up with this maturing relationship, and you don't judge a book by its cover. You've got to give people time. You've got to give the relationship time, but the most important thing is that you're always on top of the deadlines and what needs to be done.
Yeah, I think that probably comes back to what you said earlier about this. You view the whole thing as an investment rather than a cost saving. I mean, hopefully you will save costs over time, but you've got to put that investment at the start. Okay,
And the other
I think we've covered
the other thing I was just going to mention on that is that you'll then, as the principal person in your business, you're then the doer and the manager. And that also creates much more, and certainly initially, it creates much more of a time factor for you, because now you're following somebody else up as well as working on everything yourself.
Yeah, you've got that investment in time as well as in money. Exactly. Okay, so I think we've covered quite a few useful points. Please feedback to us and subscribe and like, so we know whether we have included useful points. And before we go, I'd just like to ask, first of all, Gill, is there anything that you'd like to add?
Well, we don't have time to share our case study, really, do we? I suppose, do we, or do we?
Well,
quickly?
let's see how the feedback to the episode goes, and then we can have a subsequent episode. So everyone who's listening out there, okay, now it's on you. You want to hear the case study, and I've actually seen Gill's case study. It is amazing. Then please like, subscribe, give us some feedback, and we'll give you the case study. Apart from
I don't just show it to just anyone, you know. Yeah. So yeah, I think ask Mike first.
Okay. Mike.
I've lost
and I would
it.
just say I would always say, think about the size of the project. Think about what you're looking for this person to be involved in. So if you've gone out and got yourself you've taken on a project, and then in a little bit of a panic, you've thought, I need to outsource, I need to go and get somebody, and actually the project is a significant one. You're going to be worrying about the project itself, the work you've got to do, and then you need that other person to be able to step up to the plate for something very significant. Martin's point earlier, small to start. Let's see what the person is capable of. And so you almost want to take the person on before you need them, because the second that you end up in a situation where you've got a project and then you've got to go and get somebody and you're making a relationship with them, that is a lot of ingredients for some potential issues. And you're going to be the point person, you're going to be the front man for that project the entire time. So you're going to be taking on the pressure of the pressure load. And so you may not be feeling quite as patient with your potential person that you're going to take on as you might have been if you'd have just taken them on before and got to know them a little bit.
I think it's a really good point to round off there on Mike. Is I know from my experience, I'm looking to take someone on when I'm at capacity. And as you said earlier, you actually need some extra time when you take someone on, because, you've got to do that investment in time before you get that payback. And so pre-planning a little bit and trying to take someone on before you're at capacity is the smart thing to do, says he in hindsight. But hey, that's what we're here to share, our lessons in life, and hopefully make it easier for you guys. Gill, any last thing you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to reinforce what Mike said, because it was a really, really good point. One of the first couple of projects that I took on somebody in the Philippines and somebody in Brazil, and they were both huge projects for me as a small business. And they were incredibly stressful, taking these people on and working with them on projects that I didn't really understand the project itself. It was skill sets that I didn't have, so which is why I'd taken them on. And so therefore, when it wasn't going as well, I didn't have the ability to step in and say, I'll just do it myself. And that was hugely, hugely stressful. So I think there is something about getting to know, building up that pool of people that you can take on board if you're only doing it for a project by project basis. And also if you have taken on a big project like that and you think, oh, I've charged the client a great big amount of money, you will be surprised how quickly that money goes away when you take on a freelancer. Okay, that's all.
Brilliant. Okay, just to round off then, everybody who's watching this on YouTube or listening to it on Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever, we just like to say a quick thank you to you. We're at 10 episodes now. We've been really amazed at the feedback we're getting. We are trying to use our expertise to help you. So I know everybody always says like, subscribe, but please, it does make a difference. It does help us to know that we really are helping you and we can build on the great feedback we've already had. If you've got anything specific you want us to cover, then please shout. For now, I'd like to say thank you to Gill. Thank you to Mike. I'm Martin, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care. Cheers.
See you later, guys.
Hey guys, before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss another episode. Please leave us a like or a review. It truly makes a difference when you leave reviews. And head over to allegiantweb.com/podcast, where you'll find a full transcript of the show, some key points, and quite a few other goodies for you. Let's build this thing together and really make a difference. All right, catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.